Welcome to all of you joining online and to everybody in the room. Are there people there? Who is in our room here in Silver Spring. We were just wrapping up a Malava Malka song session. Thank you to the Aleph Society and the Global Day of Jewish Learning for giving me an excuse to get together for this evening of song and Torah. Before we start, though, I do just want to have a moment to think of everybody in Paris and to pray for them for their safety and for the recovery of those who were injured, and for comfort of the families of those whose friends and families did not survive. We're going to sing a song to bring us into this, and then we'll start.
Ose shalom imama, Oyase shalom aleinu, Ve'yakol Yisrael, Ve'yakol Amen. Ose shalom imama, Oyase shalom aleinu, Ve'yakol Yisrael, Ve'yakol
Whom you can look him up because he plays the mandolin and many other stringed instruments, and you can book him. Okay, so I'm sorry I didn't have you introduce yourselves, people in the room. We want to maybe do that anyway. Sorry for hold on for the people here who are online, but I think it's worth just doing a quick go around. There are people from my work life, people from long ago, people from now, from my local neighborhood. So maybe just quickly go around and say your names at least so you have the names for faces.
Hello.
Just try again. Sorry about that. Alon.
Hello. Rebecca. Atara.
Abe.
Hannah.
Natan. Dan.
Laura.
Gabri.
Okay, and I'm Abby Dauber Sterne. So that song that we just sang, completely unplanned in terms of obviously the events in Paris, but it really brings me at least to be thinking about the topic we were supposed to talk about today. The topic, the name of our session is Love Yourself More Than Your Neighbor, Universalism versus Particularism. So in that song that we were just singing, was Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel. God, please make peace, Oseh Shalom Bimromav, in the heavens. Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, he shall make peace among us, among the Jews, Al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, and on all the people of the world, all the inhabitants of the world. And I think very often, right, there's a question of who are we davening for? Are we davening for ourselves? Are we praying for ourselves? Or are we praying for other people? Do we love ourselves? Do we love others? How do we balance these two? And in my work at Hillel in particular, where I head up the education department there, a question that comes up a lot is or something we see a lot with college students is there's a real difficulty or inability for college students to say we matter more. And I don't mean we matter more, that my life matters more necessarily, but that somehow it's okay to focus on the Jews. There's often a push to do, say, social justice activities in faraway lands where we don't know anybody, rather than to do something right here in my backyard. And the question is why? What's that about? Is that right? Is that wrong? How do we think through the question of who should we care about more? Should we focus on the particular or particularism versus universalism? That's what I want to talk about today. So the other interesting thing I just want to mention, because I heard this lecture by this woman, a book called How to Raise an Adult by a woman named Julie Lythcott-Haims. And she really talks about the fact that today, that parents today are maybe not raising adults, but actually they're raising children to continue to be children for longer and longer periods of time. And what she means by that is she was a dean at Stanford, a freshman dean at Stanford for about 10 years. And over the 10 years, she saw that students were increasingly, it's hard to say, but less and less able. They were less and less able to express personal ideas, to say what they liked, what they loved. They could say all the things they had done. They could give their checklist of, you know, I got this grade, I took this class, I volunteered here, I worked there, but they couldn't talk about their passions. They couldn't talk who they were in a very particular way. And she calls this the checklist childhood. And what she describes, that this sense of not being able to describe who they are, she called existential impotence. That she sees college students today, millennials as they're called, to really have this sort of existential impotence. So that just got me thinking a lot about what does that mean? What does it mean to not have a particular identity? And that's what I think it's about, right? I think this question of, or this pattern that we see, right? We want to help people in faraway places, not nearby. We can't really talk about who we are. There's something very profound about that. And I think Judaism might have something to say about it. So the first, I wanted to show one other thing, just to give you another college example, because I think it's so funny. And it didn't fully come out here, but The Onion, you know what The Onion is? It's a sort of spoof newspaper. So this says, parents dedicate new college safe space in honor of daughter who felt weird once in a classroom, right? So, right, there's also this feeling of college students who as soon as they're uncomfortable, we have to protect them. We need to give them a safe space because their identities are so fragile. They can't even stand any kind of discomfort in their lives. And The Onion is usually really profound and accurate when they say things like, you know, any kind of thing they publish. So I want to think about both as parents, for some of us, as educators, for others of us as people just living in the world, what does it mean to struggle with these kinds of questions? So Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, in this book, Future Tense, he explains, and this probably a lot of us know, but he explains that the Torah starts in a very universal way. It starts with the creation of the world and the story of Noah, and then continues into a much more particularistic story, the story of Abraham, which is the story of our people ultimately, right? And the giving of the Torah, etc. And he says what's interesting about that is that we start from the universal and go to the particular, whereas in human development, we actually start from the particular and go to the universal, right? We start from, we only love our smallest circle of people. We only know the things that are right in our orbit. And slowly, as we grow, we get to this much more big universal way of looking at things. But the Torah, says Sachs, actually tries to flip that, tries to point us in another direction, perhaps, and says, well, wait a second, let's look toward the particular. Let's not ignore the universal. It's there too, and it's important, but how do we look towards the particular? So let's explore that question. How do we hold both particular identities and universal identities? How do we move between these two in ways that are productive and maybe give us some direction? So you should please open your source sheet, take your source sheet. If you're online, you can click on that button. Thank you to Safaria. If you don't know Safaria, it's an awesome website that builds source sheets. Okay, so let's just jump right in and start reading them. I think I'm going to do all the reading, unfortunately, because I'm afraid they won't hear online. So I'm going to do the reading. Okay, so Yerushalmi in Nedarim says, Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, Rabbi Akiva Omer. So that's a pretty famous statement. Rabbi Akiva taught, love your neighbor as yourself, right? You should love the other as much as you love yourself, the neighbor. This is the most important rule in the Torah, right? It's a klal gadol b'Torah. Then we have Ben Azai, who says something quite different. He says, "Zeh sefer todot Adam, zeh klal gadol mizeh." This is the book of the chronologies of Adam. This is a bigger principle than this. So what do we think of those two statements? Please jump in. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I'm not well versed in text, but my question is, Rabbi Akiva makes the claim, this is the most important rule in the Torah. I'm referring, of course, to love your neighbor as yourself. Is there any reasoning or what is his reasoning and why is that his conclusion that love your neighbor as yourself? That is the most important rule in the Torah. I'd like to see how he arrives at that conclusion. Is there anywhere else he explains maybe is that?
Does anyone know? I mean, I'd have to look and see. We'll quote another few things from Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva does seem quite obsessed with how do we treat others, how do we treat ourselves. It's something that he is very interested in.
Yeah, just to me, what is his angle and why is he saying that?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't disagree that it's not important, but why is he saying that?
And what do you think of what Ben Azai says in comparison?
This is the book of knowledge. This is a bigger principle than this.
Right. So Ben Azai is quoting from Genesis, and Rabbi Akiva is quoting from Leviticus. Bakasha Yifat.
I think that the Torah is only for Israel, and the Todot Adam is for all the world. So we say that the V'ahavta l'recha is not only for the Jewish people. You're supposed to love yourself and then to love the other people, and this is Klal Gadol, is very important rule for all the human beings, not only for the Jewish people.
And wait, I'll say what Yifat said again, that the love yourself as your neighbor is important for all the Jewish, for everybody, not just for the Jewish people. And Ben Azai, what he's saying is important for?
No, Ben Azai say it's not only for the people that have the Torah, not only for the Jewish people. This is for all the world. This is important for all the human beings.
He is saying that you're saying that Ben Azai is quoting, this is the book of chronologies of Adam, to say that verse, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you should love your neighbor as yourself, actually comes not just from the Torah of particular to the Jews, but from the Torah that is for all, that's for the people of Adam, and actually that this is a principle that applies to all people. That's beautiful. That's great. Yeah, Tara.
That's a very interesting reading.
Yeah.
That I did not think of. I guess I think I heard this read before and talking about it. Is that Ben Azai's response? I think is that he's saying no. You have to understand where you come from first before you can go ahead and love your neighbor as yourself. It's love as yourself. So him quoting saying "Zeh sefer todot Adam," that's what the is that. Sefer todot Adam, that's when the list of from the beginning of time began of Adam going through the generations after him to kind of set up until he reaches the generations that we become more familiar with, that lead to Abraham and so forth. And then so I think that has been Azai is kind of saying like he was jumping ahead a little bit, like he's getting to a kalal that is important, but how can you love your neighbor as yourself, jumping all the way ahead to that if you don't understand kind of the origins of where we came from, and maybe the origin of where humanity comes from. I mean, maybe not just the Jewish people.
So I'm repeating it to make sure people heard. Wait, and make sure that I got it also. Wait, that you're saying that you can only love your neighbor as yourself if you understand where you come from.
Right.
Right. And that's why. So it's also a modification that the Ben Azai isn't. So we have two opinions here that saying that the Ben Azai isn't contradicting. It's actually building on explaining why. Either why love your neighbor is so important to us beyond just to us as Jewish people, beyond that it's important to everybody. And you're also saying that it's important because you have to know where you come from.
You have to know that first.
You have to know that first in order to. Great.
There's also something in the, which is such a bigger feature of all of the chronologies that we read in Bereshit, and I'm so struck by the fact that we're in Parshat, we just finished Parshat Talmud today, that sort of explains not only sort of where we come from, but actually how nations got divided, right? There's so much of the generations there, and this is why these people are in this land, and this is why they speak this language, and this is why they have these characteristics. And so there's a way of reading this that says, before you love your neighbor as yourself, you have to understand all of our particularities, all of our differences, all of our own regional identities, our languages, our heritages. Because not until we actually understand how we're different can we really do that act of loving our neighbor.
Right. So that's a very similar opinion to what Atara said, which is right, that we need to understand how we're different in order to really understand how we love our neighbors. That's great. Yes, alone.
So to bring in the counter argument is to say, right, these two things don't seem to really be at odds with each other. One of them says, here is a principle by how you can act today in the world. And the other one says, here's a list.
Uh-huh.
The lists aren't particularly exciting. And so if you come at this and you say, what are the contradictory principles that these two people are attempting to lay out? One says, if you live today and you are, let's say in the largest sense, a good person, that's the most important thing. And the other person comes in and says, no. It's very nice that you like to use the table that you built. But the most important thing is to understand the instruction set that came with the table that you built and all of the things that are important about it and how to use it and what you're supposed to do. And so the dictates of the book, it's not about, it lists out the chronology of the generations of Adam, but to say this is your origin and everything that flows from this is actually more important. This is the instruction manual. And everything else is nice, but secondary to that principle. So very nice, very important. Only really important because it comes from this central dictate.
So you think there is more of a contradiction?
It could be a direct contradiction to say it's very nice. It's basically to say it's an inversion in the Venn diagram, right? One says if you're a good person, and this is the most important thing, then the Torah becomes subsidiary to that. And the other person says, it's very nice, what you quoted, by the way, that's in the Torah, that's the macro item, and this is a micro item.
It's such a weird choice of, like, there are other psukim, I can't quote them right now, but that say Sefer whatever, sure. And then this one is like so universalistic, Sefer Toldos Adam, like, I mean, it's at the beginning, so it kind of makes sense, but I wonder about that. It just seems like it's just, you know, but it's just a weird choice to make.
So let's go on. Welcome. Hi. So let's go on to the next source and see if we begin to understand this, if it's similar directions or different directions. So it's the source of Baba Metzia, 62a. Okay, and I'm going to read because we have, just to welcome the new people who have walked in. Hi, Mariana. Hi, Michael. We have people also joining us online, just so you know. So that's why the computer is here. So I will repeat some of what is said in the room. Okay, so I will, let's read. Shnaim shahayu me'alchin b'derech, uveyad echad mehen kiton shel mayim. Two people are traveling along the way, and one of them has a flask of water. Im shotin shnehem metim. If they both drink, they both will die. V'im shoteh echad mehem magia liyeshuv. And if only one of them drinks, then he will be able to make it out of the desert. He'll make it to a yeshuv, to a place with people, with water. So, Darash ben Petura. Mutav sheishtu shnehem v'yamutu. Ben Petura says it's better that they both drink and both die. Ve'al yireh echad behen b'mitato shel chavira. So that one person, the one who would have survived had he drunk all the water, wouldn't have felt badly that he essentially killed the other, right? So they should both die, says Ben Petura. Ad sheba Rabbi Akiva, the same Rabbi Akiva in our previous Gemara. V'limed v'chai achicha ibach. Chayecha kodmim l'chayei chaverecha. Your brother shall live with you, right? Rabbi Akiva says, no, it is sorry. He says, no, your brother shall live with you. He quotes this pasuk in Vayikra. He says, your life comes first before the life of your friend. Meaning, drink all the water and save yourself. Okay. So, let's talk about this Gemara. But remember, we just read Rabbi Akiva saying, love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, by the way, except for when you're going to die. So, what do we make of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
When we used to stay up all night on Shavuot, and we inevitably pulled out Pirkei Avot, and so a lot of the conversation was about this kind of thing. And this pasuk always ends up, or this statement always ends up coming back up. And the statement is not love your neighbor, period. It is love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so that is actually a precondition to the clause, right? It says you cannot love somebody else until you love yourself. And we would spend a lot of time on what that meant. But if you take that as a given, you say, first you love yourself most. At edge cases, that's going to win, right? And then once you love yourself, you can learn out that you can then love others as much as you love yourself. We're not saying don't. We're not saying take somebody else, take them, put them above you. Saying love them as much as you love yourself. Again, at edge cases, when it's between you and them, look, we said love yourself. Like that was first. And by the way, while you're doing that, also love your neighbor then.
That's certainly in line with Rabbi Akiva. By the way, just side note, this Rabbi Petura guy, this Ben Petura guy, I mean, not Rabbi, Ben Petura, unclear who he is. It's very possible that he actually is Yeshu, as in Jesus. So that's one interpretation, right? So one way to certainly understand it is this is the non-Jewish view and this is the Jewish view. I'm not sure we want to understand that way, but that adds a little bit of intrigue to the Gemara. Yeah,
well, I didn't know that was actually a possible explanation. I was going to say that it's possible, and I don't know, but I don't know the context of where this comes in Gemara or people connected to it. I was going to say there's the possibility that it is not so connected to Mocha as is connected to the idea of when is it okay to give up your life immediately? And the answers are few and far between. And there's generally, there are many discussions about how there are really very few times when that's okay. And that is, I mean, sometimes when you learn those things in the context of learning, there is definitely a contrasting it to perhaps other groups that felt there are more opportunities to give up your life for other things. And in Judaism, that is specifically something that we are very against.
So what's our
no idea that them, and I'm just thinking like in general in the time and when you're having these kinds of discussions that perhaps coming up with other scenarios where one might think, oh, should this be a place where I'm giving up my life? And the answer is no. In Judaism, almost never do that. There are clear examples where that even allowed, and even some of those where they say it's allowed, then in the end, there are all these examples there.
So Tara, I think what you're saying is basically, Tara's questioning my bringing these two Gemaras together, saying, maybe they don't really have anything to do with each other. Just because Rabbi Akiva said both of them doesn't mean that they're contrasting values.
To a historical thing, and sometimes the Gemara does that in a teachable moment like this kind of thing, where you have someone like Rabbi Akiva come and say that, and everyone else, Rabbi Akiva says that, then he definitely can't.
Right. So Atara thinks it's different. Atara thinks that the second case is really just about a life or death situation, which is something very different than just this notion of loving oneself, as loving somebody else as much as the other. I'm not sure. I mean, I think if we're serious about our values, when we say love your neighbor as yourself, we might actually mean literally. But I hear what you're saying, that maybe it's halachically a different category, and therefore it shouldn't be compared. Other additional thoughts? Okay, let's go on. We'll collate all the different pieces and as we move forward. But let's read another one. This one doesn't have Rabbi Akiva, but it's an interesting case of a much more practical situation. Okay, from Nedarim Pei Mudbet. Ma'ayan shel bnei ha'ir, chayehen v'chayei acherim. Chayehen could mean l'chayei acherim. Okay, a spring belongs to the residents of the city, right? That's a terrible translation, sorry about that. But there is a spring that belongs to a city. If it's a choice between their lives, the lives of where the spring is, and the lives of somebody in a different city, the lives of the people in the city where the spring is, their lives come first. Meaning if there's only enough water, right, for one or the other, it's the people in that community, right? Okay, so this is no longer just about individuals. This suddenly becomes about a community of people. Now, what about their animals? Behemtan, uvehemat acherim. Behemtan kodemet lebehemat acherim. So similarly, if you only have enough water for your own animals or your community's animals, your city's animals, and you can't give it to the animals of another city, your animals come first. Kvisatan. Kvisa, everybody? Laundry. I think, what are your laundry? Kvisat acherim, someone else's laundry. Kvisatan kodemet, even your own laundry comes first. Right, chayei acherim. Here goes, ready? Chayei acherim. What if we have a choice between the lives of others, v'kvisatan, and laundry? I mean, it seems like a joke, right? It seems like we're going to tell a joke at the end of this. Chayei acherim could mean l'kvisatan. Oh, phew. The lives are more important than our laundry. So if it's choice between your laundry here in Kent Mill and in DC they don't have water, right? I should give up my laundry and give the people in DC some water to drink. That's good to know. But then we have Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Kvisatan kodemet l'chaye acharim. No, he actually says, no, even your laundry is actually more important. Your community's laundry is more important than the lives of a city somewhere else.
Rabbi Yossi lives in a gated community.
Yes,
Well-known.
in a gated
Certainly is upstream.
In case you didn't hear that online, the man to my right said, Rabbi Yossi lives in a gated community. It's okay. No offense to anyone. So Rabbi Yossi, by the way, explains, in case you were worried, yesh bat sa'ar, right? It's because it's really uncomfortable. There's real sa'ar in not having clean laundry. So what is this Gemara about? We have v'ahavta l'recha kamocha. We have chayecha. What's the pasuk? Sorry, your brother shall live with you, right? V'chay achicha imach. And now we have this idea of how do you, again, literally save the lives of somewhere else or of somebody else, but it's not just somebody else, it's a whole city, right? We've sort of expanded this, and we have this idea of laundry thrown into the mix. No longer people, not even animals, but something having to do with our physical comfort and cleanliness, probably.
What's kind of fun about these three Gemaras is the other has a different name in each case. One is Reacha, which is hard to translate. Achicha, relatively easy to translate your brother, and the third is Acherim, which sounds like the most distant. They're sort of outside of your world in some ways. So that hierarchy, Reacha, Achicha, and Acherim could be something that could be, you could tie all these together to do that.
That's beautiful. So what Natan just said was that we have three different people or words to describe the people we're talking about in these Gemaras. We have Re'acha, some kind of neighbor or friend. We have Achicha, we have brother. And then we have Acherim, we have this sort of generic other. And it's possible that the differences we're talking about have to do with the closeness of the relationship. That's wonderful. That's really, really beautiful.
That's a really good point, because in the Gemara and the Dauber, when Abby read it the first time, we're thinking, and actually, because of the example, it's like, oh, you're picturing two towns. One has water and one doesn't. But that's not what it says, actually. It makes it's only reference to one here. And so you don't know if the Acherim is people who are, they already left their city hundreds of miles away. They're in search of somewhere else that has water. Like they're coming, and maybe they're complete strangers. They're not anyone. They don't live in the next town. They're Acherim. They're not your neighbor or somebody you have any relationship to at all. And then if you read in that light of who knows who's Acherim, or maybe they're passing through and they're looking for water. And the question of the town is, well, do we give up how far do we go from our kind of daily needs to cater to this completely random group of Acherim, which is kind of connected to a lot of things going on in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on.
And that is really like that. I think maybe that's more what that Gemara is.
So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember back sitting in high school tired and bored, but the interpretation of Sodom and Amorah, the reason that they are destroyed is because a person walking into that city would find that the doors were closed to them. How is doing your laundry prior to giving someone who walks into your city water not committing the exact same?
Well, this isn't. I just want to be clear. This isn't about immigration. Okay, so we're not going to get into those politics. You can watch the Democratic debates for that.
I had a thought in that direction actually. If it's like extreme discomfort, then instead of laundry, if you think hygiene, and then you've got a further delineation between, okay, we're not talking about saving your life, but we all are talking about your health. And so if it's
I know what you do for a living.
If it is the health of your community or the lives of others, then it would be the health of your community that you're starting to prioritize.
It's about the health of your community, right? Because it's possible, I'm just repeating it, that the laundry actually has to do with hygiene. And if it's maybe about the health of your community over the lives of others, maybe the health is a priority. Additional thoughts? Yeah, Hannah.
I think just to add on to that, like if we so much want to help others that we're hurting or like we don't have enough for ourselves, that just creates more problems for other people to come in and help us. I guess it's just kind of going on with what you said, Rebecca, that if we need to basically take care of our own and like make sure that we are self-sufficient, so we don't become like someone else is actually reading that like other people have to look out for us.
Wait, one more time.
So,
Sorry.
like, meaning we have to look out for ourselves. The point that like we don't become someone else's charity piece.
Ah, right. Okay. So here's an explanation. So you're the right. We haven't actually talked about what we talked a little bit about what the reason could be, but I think that's a clear explanation of what the reason could be is if we don't take care of ourselves, essentially who will take care of us? Because we will become somebody else's charity case. Now the problem with that is, well, right here it sounds geographic, but right, one is who is us. Another problem with that is, well, that could be a self-perpetuating, right? We know that in society there are always people who are sort of down and out. And what if they're not just, they don't live near us? But, right, yes.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine this adjudication that was being offered here. Well, you don't have any water at all, and you do, and you're going to use it for laundry. You would never go to a court and ask that question. You'd have a war. So the fact that they're talking about it, some sedate judge says, well, you have no water, and that's why you're going to die first, and you have, and you've got. So it's interesting that it's obviously not just completely theoretical. It's actually not talking about water. It's talking about something else, because you'd never come to a place where one community had water and one didn't, and one was using it for frivolous things, even for health. But that community who didn't have water wasn't going to sit back and do nothing about it. So it's an odd context in which to discuss something that feels right and there.
Yeah.
The word in the Gemara is tzal.
Yeah.
And tzal, aside from maybe a wonderful foreshadowing of the wonderful OCD nature of humans in the future, like tzal is not sakana, tzal is not all of these other words that exist and that are regularly.
Tzal is a physical feeling of
discomfort.
Discomfort.
Which is what you have, people, for example, a tissue body, meant to make yourself tzal. That degree of.
Right, and so that's when I hear you say, well, this is a matter of war, and I don't disagree that it's a very interesting interpretation, but the text itself doesn't lead me to say, well, they're saying in a world in which you have to, how much do you have to give of yourself before you lose your communal integrity, which I think is something like what you're saying. And they're saying you really don't have to give very much because it would just make you sad. And I hear you saying, well, that's of a whole, but I read the text and I say, that doesn't make a lot of sense. They're saying it just has to make you unhappy or uncomfortable. And I say, that seems weird, because then what you're saying is, well, let's go to war.
Right, over this being uncomfortable.
Over this being uncomfortable, which seems awkward. It's like conflict is worth very little degradation in your quality of life.
That's why this is a very odd
adjudication. Should we read another one? Okay. So here I brought a source from Pirkei Avot. Okay. Hu Haya Omer. We have Rabbi Akiva again. He's back. Okay. This is a very different source. Just to warn you, this is going to take us in a slightly different direction. Okay. Chaviv Adam Shnivra B'Tzelem. Beloved is humankind, since she was created in the image of God. A deeper or additional love was given to him, revealed to him, because humankind was created in God's image, as it says, okay, because man was created in God's image. Chavivin Yisrael shenikru vanim lamakom. Beloved are Israel, right, the same word, chaviv. Beloved are Israel, since they are called children of God. Chiba yetera nodat lahem. An additional, deeper love was revealed to them, to the Jewish people. Shenikru banim lamakom, because they were called children of God. Shene'emar banim atem laHashem Elokechem. Right, you are children to Hashem. Chavivin Yisrael. So, beloved are Israel. Shenatan lahem kli chemda. But Israel are beloved. Why? Because they were given a precious instrument. Chiba yetera, an additional love, nodat lahem. Shenatan lahem kli chemda shebo nivra haolam. Not only was it a precious instrument, it was an instrument with which the world was created. Shene'emar ki lekach tov natati lachem torati al ta'azovu. For a good lesson I have given to you, do not forsake my teaching. In other words, what was this precious instrument with which the world was created that was given to the Jewish people? The Torah. Right. So what do we do with this? Right. So here now we've come from a whole discussion of who's more important, myself or somebody else, my local city, right? People who live near me or people who live far away, not far away. People who don't live near me, I guess I should say. If I wanted to take that previous piece, right, one way I could take the previous piece and think about it is it's not just people who live near me and people who live far away. It could be it could be about my people versus other people, right? We could use it metaphorically, and then that's how I sort of got to this Mishnah, right? Thinking about, wait a second, it's about us. It's about us and them, right? It's about the Jewish people and other people. Are we different? Are we the same? Is there this particular thing versus universal thing? So in this Mishnah, it's kind of, to me, dancing right in between. How do you guys read this Mishnah in terms of are we different? Are the Jewish people in this case, does this Mishnah think we're different? We don't have to come down as an answer if that's what you believe or feel, but what is this Mishnah trying to say?
There's something satisfying just reading it as that because Kiva is used in both cases. Like once you're talking about love, you can differentiate between, like, somehow if you could differentiate between levels of love, then you can get to the difference that Israel is. But it all starts with this sort of like unbelievable love for humanity, like that is sort of sets a pretty high bar for a universal, let's say. Mm-hmm. And it's only like, once you can differentiate between levels of love that you could get to some sort of particular of Israel. That's a very satisfying reading. I'm not saying that that's a very shot reading of the Mishnah, but that's a satisfying reading for our sort of moral state.
I actually almost get chills hearing that, honestly. Right. So what Natan just said is right that this is about love, right? This is about chiba, and that the distinctions here are about levels of love. But there's a lot of love, right, to go around. God has a lot of love, and God loves all of humanity. And yes, there's maybe a different kind of love. He doesn't. I don't know if it's greater love, but there's certainly another kind of love that this Mishnah is describing for the people of Israel.
Well, so this translation translates Kiva Yetira as an deeper love.
Right.
Actually, in my knowledge, I would
additional,
say an additional,
right,
or an extra love.
Yeah, Yetira.
Right. Yetira usually means that.
I agree.
But that made me think, though. I wonder if maybe this didn't translate that way. It's because then where are we starting off from? Like, what's the extra love versus what?
What's the regular love?
What's the regular love?
Right. That's a good question.
If you start, is it the animal world? There's what comes before. Like that's why at first I thought we're meeting in the middle, because I couldn't understand where was the base Kiva that all of this is Kiva Yetira. So because even all humankind gets Kiva Yetira, but I'm wondering what.
That's great.
What's
right.
the other Kiva? So and this is just the whole thing, right? This is one Mishnah, so there's no I don't know that we know the answer to that, but that's why I think it's so interesting, because everyone is Chaviv, and then they all get a Kiva Yetira.
Right.
So
it starts with Chaviv Adam Shenivra B'Tselem.
Right. And
humankind. Right.
But then it's still Adam gets Kiva Yetira.
And then the same Adam.
There's no differentiation there. So there's Adam is the love, and then they also have not only just the regular love, they have a Kiva Yetira, but it's everybody.
That's great.
That was created in Talmudic. And then we get to the next. And also, then I thought it was going to be one of those Mishnayos that gives you levels, but it doesn't, because then okay, fine, that's all humankind. Okay, so then Yisrael is also Chaviv. There's two different reasons why, and it doesn't go up one from the other. They seem to be kind of parallel. And then Yisrael also has Kiva Yetira, but so does everybody. So I don't even know.
So one of the things that you just
made me feel there was a differentiation, but now I'm not.
So the other thing, for some reason, just in rereading this right now, I recall Rabbi Jonathan Sachs in the same book I quoted before, Future Tense, talks about the two names of God. Elokim and Shem Hashem, right? Yod Kei Vav Kei, and it plays out here actually beautifully that Elokim, the name Elokim, is most often referred to when humankind in general comes up. It's sort of the name in Breshit that's much more common. When God gives the Torah, when God has interactions with Bnei Israel, it's Shem Hashem. It's the Yod Kei Vav Kei name. And there is seemingly a distinction, right, in the Torah between this general relationship God has with people and a particular name that God has for that He uses with the Jewish people, the Eheye Asher Eheye name. Right? Okay, let's read one more. Mishnah Torah. Okay, this is Maimonides, where Maimonides basically codifies all the laws in the Talmud, all the halachot. And I will say, if you look up this Mishnah, this halakha, it's a little bit out of context, so it's a bit of a stretch. But this line was so worth it for me that I decided it was okay. But I needed to say it to be real. Okay, V'chol Yisrael v'hanilveh elehem, all of Israel and all who go with them or attached to them, ke'achim hem, are like brothers. Shene'emar, banim atem la'Hashem Elokechem. As it says, you are the children of the Lord your God. Ve'im lo yerachem ha'ach al ha'ach, mi yerachem alav. And if a brother does not have compassion for his own brother, who will have compassion for him? So that's very similar, right, to what Hannah said earlier, which is if you don't think of right, your own brother, who will have compassion for you. Okay, so I've just thrown a lot of different thoughts out there, and that one really, I might have put this halacha actually a source earlier, because I think it relates to exactly what Hannah brought up, right? To explain why do we keep water just for our own communities, because if you don't care for your own brothers, who will care for him? It does not help me understand the Mishnah and Avot, right? Of what is this relationship with God and what is it particular. So where are all of your heads? What are you thinking about? How, but if I go back to the original question that we started with, I'll remind you what that was, which was when we're thinking about our own identities. I talked a little bit about college students who have the sense of a little bit of what I call being unmoored, who are a little directionless, who can't say who they are, what their identities are. They know they should care and be good people for somewhere out there. But it's sort of, it's very vague. And the question is, so what should we be educating for? We want people to care for the other. We want them to care for ourselves too. We want them to think that, right, what's happening all around the world is important. But wait, we want them to think what's happening to us and our people is really important too. How do we balance that out? And what are some of our Jewish texts have to say about that? So after reading these, do people have thoughts about that question?
I find the love in the last source ambiguous, in the sense of, if you don't have compassion for your brother, who will have compassion for him, like who's the him? Right? If you don't have compassion for your brother, it's like the brother's nearest and dearest isn't taking care of him, well, who's going to be? So I was going to something in. On the other hand, if you're someone who shows that you don't have compassion even for your nearest and dearest, how are people going to treat you, right? As they're going to have compassion over you. And I think the macro takeaway that this gives to me is our choices have consequences. Whether we choose to think of ourselves and take care of ourselves first, or we choose to take care of the other, whether the other is the immediate other, the proximate other, or the far other. Those choices have consequences. To be aware of those choices, and to factor them into our decision making.
Additional thoughts?
There's a piece of text that sort of keeps catching my eye. It's the Bava Metzia. Then Rabbi Akiva came and taught, your brother shall live with you. Specifically, your brother shall live with you. And that it's not entirely relevant to the theme we're discussing, but it gets me thinking a lot about memory, the concept of memory, and how we choose to remember people and how powerful of a force that is. Because when you look at the text, it says your brother shall live, right? So it's almost as if through memory, someone can, their identity can be preserved to such an extent that they're still alive. I'm reading a book about Abraham Lincoln right now, and it's so descriptive that it's almost as if I've really come to know him, understand him to a great extent. And then you think, what is really, I guess, then kind of the nature of death, because you pass away physically, but legacy and memory is such that people can really live on throughout the ages. So that's just a thought that I've had.
Well, I love how when we read different things, all the things start linking up in interesting ways. So I'm glad. Thank you. So let's just read this last little paragraph in English. This, I should have said at the beginning, this whole shiur and this thinking, well, it was both inspired by my work at Hillel, but also by an article I read, a while ago, maybe 8 years ago, called Imagine on Love in Lenin by Zev Magen, who actually just wrote a book on the subject. So, although the article I actually think is maybe better. It says, in short, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I haven't read the whole book, so maybe just this part is better. In short, universal love isn't love at all, because love means preference. The kind of love that means anything, the kind of love we all really want and need and live for, the kind of love that is worth anything to anyone, that is worth everything to everyone, is love that by its very nature, by its very definition, distinguishes and prefers. And to me, that's actually very, very profound, and so obvious at the same time, right? That all of this talk about love your neighbor as yourself. Who do I save, myself or somebody else, my community or somebody else? Almost instinctively, of course we would save ourselves. We were, right? Or of course I would save my husband, my children, my closest friend before I'd save somebody I don't know. What kind of insane idea is it that I'd, save somebody else first? And yet, what somehow we're educating a whole generation or generations of people to right now is actually quite the opposite. And it might be radical to say, no, we shouldn't be thinking of the poor person in Africa. Of course we should be thinking of the poor person in Africa. But wait a second, what about the poor person I walk down by the street every day that we ignore, that we don't give money to? And yet, all these campaigns and college students in particular who are up in arms about the person far, far away from them. I often make a distinction, my sort of little quip is that make a distinction between tikkun olam and chesed. Right? Tikkun olam, fixing the world, is about fixing the world. I'm going to go help the world and fix all the people I don't know. And chesed is about the little acts of kindness that I do for the person next door. When I go visit the sick person, or I bring soup, or whatever it is. But it's the person I know and love. And it might not be fixing the world, but it's actually helping the person that I love, and is incredibly powerful and meaningful to the community and to those around us. And to me, that's what this whole subject is actually about. Right? It's about thinking about what my own story is, what my own connections are. Yes, the Torah is the special gift to the Jewish people, so it's the special thing that I read and study. It doesn't mean that for different people there isn't something more special, but for my people, that's what's special. And for me, that's what's special. And it's okay, and it's in fact a good thing. It makes me who I am, to love something more than something else. And we have to find a way of helping the people we talk to and work with to say it's okay, this is a good thing. That's what makes you who you are, and that's what makes the world, in fact, a better place. So with that, I will let everybody online go. You should know that every hour for the next, I think, 23 hours now, the Global Day of Jewish Learning is hosting different speakers, and you should tune in if anybody would like. It's globalday.org, I think. You can look it up, Global Day of Jewish Learning. And thank you so much for joining us. We will probably continue singing for a few minutes. Song. Should we do the same song? We could sing a song that also has, again, we're going to go back to the song that has Yoshvei Tevel in it also, so lest anybody think I don't care about the rest of the world, I do. Good one. You chose a good one, Gabri.
Shalom Shalom Shalom
Thank you all. We can keep it. If you have a tune, feel free to add another one. If I turn off the lights, will we start singing again?